Open your cerebral cortex and shift your lobes into upper beta phase, because you are going to have Bitcoin knowledge transmitted directly into your vestibulocochlear. Your host at Bitcoin Knowledge is Trace Mayer, an early Bitcoin advocate since it cost $0.25, but this is not intended to be investment advice. A doctor of jurisprudence, but this is definitely not legal advice. And an investor in core cryptocurrency infrastructure, including Armory, BitPay, Kraken, and Mitagio, but this is not a recommendation of those services. Here, you get fed via direct mind download with pure and free Bitcoin knowledge.
Welcome back to the Bitcoin Knowledge Podcast. We have with us an old timer in the Bitcoin community, Eric Lombrozo. He's CEO and founder of Ciphrex. Welcome to the podcast, Eric.
Thank you very much, Trace.
Just some of your background. We've been rubbing shoulders for years now. How'd you get into Bitcoin? Like, when was it? Like, what kind of drew you into this space?
So I was at a party in about 2011, I guess it was, and a friend of mine just started talking about Bitcoin and how he had some ideas of some crazy games that he wanted to make with it or whatever. And I started looking into it, and I kind of, the party kind of ended for me. Like, at that point, I could just spent the rest of the night just researching Bitcoin and trying to figure out, what this was all about. And I spent the next few weeks just, hammering away, and it just seemed to be the most innovative and interesting internet application I'd seen in a very long time.
Nice. Now, you're working on mSIGNA over here at Ciphrex, and at least in my opinion, if there were another software that's going to be comparable with Armory, it would be mSIGNA. So maybe you can give us a little bit of an overview of what you've actually been able to build there and why it's such a good security solution for people. Sure.
So a few Bitcoin standards became standard in 2012. Notably the multi-sig BIP16 and hierarchical deterministic wallets, BIP32. There were no good tools at the time for this. So basically, you have this really cool feature that's supported in the protocol, but you don't have a way of using it. So I started kind of brainstorming and thinking about how this could actually be made usable, user-friendly. And so that's when I kind of started trying to put these two ideas together and to build something that allowed you to configure and deploy accounts that were kind of independent. So you could set up accounts where the policies could be specified, incrementally. You could always change the policies if you want and make that very flexible as it could be done. But to make it so that deploying it and administering it was fairly simple. So towards the end of 2013, I already had this integration, and we were actually the first to do deterministic multi-sigs. A lot of others now are claiming to be the first, but actually we were the first to have deterministic multisig, and that allowed us to create this whole platform where rather than specifying a specific kind of configuration, we kind of leave it open-ended, so we can have custom policies constructed depending on the application.
I mean, you're talking about custom policies for hedge funds or other institutional size investors that are going to need to be securing millions and tens and hundreds of millions of dollars worth of Bitcoin, right?
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah, and being able to have the proper policies and procedures in place to segregate the duties, to make sure that there's security standards that are being followed on all the different chains in the process, all of this, so that Bitcoins don't disappear. This is just a level of professionalization that needs to come to the industry if we're going to be growing to this size.
Yes.
You made a comment, other people claim to be the first to do this, but they weren't. I mean, they're just making claims out there that just patently aren't true. Alan Reiner, he and Greg Maxwell, they developed the whole hierarchical deterministic wallet standard with BIP32, but it's currently not implemented in Armory. That we're going to be rewriting the software there. But, I mean, you guys have implemented that. But then when we're looking at multi-sig, you have this first multi-sig hierarchical deterministic implementation. Mm-hmm. What's that mean exactly? I mean, it's kind of dolphin speak, right?
Well, first I wanted to point out that, even though we were the first, that's not the most important thing. That we want to be the best. That's paramount. So as long as we're the best, we don't care if other people claim they're the first. That doesn't matter so much to us. As far as what it does, you can have different individuals or different devices each create their own sets of keys. And you can have the keys shared in a way that makes it very simple to back them up. So you can have secure backup, encrypted backup of all the keys. And you can share the public keys with other devices. So you can monitor accounts, you can see what's going on. And you can also have transparency where whenever a transaction is signed, you can see exactly which device signed it or which individual signed it. And also with the reason to use a deterministic key generation scheme also was because we wanted to also have privacy. We don't want to use the same keys for everything, right? So that's one of the things with Bitcoin. Every single transaction, generally, you want to create new addresses. And also for processing inbound payments, you want to segregate your funds. You want to make sure that you know where they were received, but you still want to have the same security policy enforced across many different accounts, possibly. So this allows you to do that.
And you're able to build the security policy or profile that you want for each of the accounts. Like sometimes you might want 2 of 3 or 2 of 2, but sometimes you might want 3 of 5 or something larger.
Sure.
And distributing the keys in a wider range.
Sure, absolutely. Or even 1 of 1. Maybe you want to just have a wallet that you use to spend from, and it's just got small amounts. You don't really care about security. You want to have it as simple to use as possible. We also support that. So it's the whole range. It's from the simplest use case to the most intricate use case, and we want to support the entire range.
You made a great comment there. You don't necessarily want to be the first or even get the credit for being the first, but you want to be the best.
Oh, absolutely.
At integrating this. And when it comes to Bitcoin security, there is not really much margin for error. Everybody has to be the best in this industry, because when you're not, there's some really smart, sophisticated people out there trying to figure out how to steal Bitcoin, right?
Sure.
Recently, we had one of the major exchanges. They lost $5 million of customer funds. This was not supposed to happen. Pantera Capital, who'd raised $147 million, offshoot of Fortress Investment Group, the $56 million hedge fund, they had invested $10 million in Bitstamp, who'd lost this $5 million. But they've also invested in Zappo and in BitGo, other quote-unquote secure wallets. This really kind of irks me personally because I was down at the Latin American Bitcoin conference and I was presenting, and Zappa was presenting with us, and they get up there and they talk about how we're the best, most secure Bitcoin wallet. And I'm like, okay, your chief marketing officer says that, but does your chief security officer say that? And the moderator of the panel was actually very helpful, Diego Gutierrez. He asked kind of a question that helped people understand that with Armory, you hold the private keys. But with Zappo and with Coinapult and with 37 Coins, who was also on the panel, they hold the private keys. Now with mSIGNA, who is in control of the private keys all the way from the generation and the storage?
You are. The end user is completely in control of all the keys. We're trying to find a good balance between security and usability. There's always this kind of trade-off. You want to make something super, super secure, but then it's very inconvenient to use. It requires a lot of training of personnel, et cetera. And it's also prone to human error. So you have all these layers of complexity on top of your security policy. So you have to look at security in the context of the risks. If you have a situation that calls for greater security, more strict policies and bigger, more expensive enforcement, it might be worth it because what you're securing might be worth a lot more. I don't really believe in a one-size-fits-all solution for everyone. I think that for the general consumer, there might be a certain kind of minimal level of protection that they can get if they're willing to sacrifice some control, so they can also delegate the responsibility to someone else. If they want to have full control, though, then, they are ultimately responsible for this. We want to give them the best tools that we can so that they can do that.
I completely agree with that. I mean, on the podcast, we've interviewed Nick Carey, the CEO of Blockchain. We've interviewed Paul Pewey, CEO of Airbits. These are both mobile wallets. Aaron Voisine, CEO of Bread Wallet. We've had Andy O5. He's one of our senior developers at Armory. These are all wallets that are across the spectrum in terms of use case. If you got $100 and you want it on your mobile device so that you can pay for the latte or something, you don't need to be securing that with 7 of 12 or something. I mean, it's just not feasible. But if you're securing tens of millions or hundreds of millions of dollars worth of Bitcoins, the Bitcoin Investment Trust or the Winklevoss ETF or the Exanti Hedge Fund or Bitstamp or, one of these large custodians, then you need to be doing it the right way.
Oh, absolutely.
Now, there are two different parts to this. There's the software, which is what you've built, right, with mSIGNA. but there's also all the policies and procedures that go around with that. So are you also performing that role, or is someone else involved in that?
We've been working with Michael Perklin at Bitcoin Consultants, and he has been, we're working on packaging together an entire set of products and services. So that includes the software, hardware, all the policy configurations, the best practices, certification programs, etc., which I think are all necessary. You can't just have software if it's not being used correctly. Then it's no good. It's as if, it wasn't really secure. I mean, security isn't just one piece of this whole thing. It's this whole thing working together.
I was on the panel at Coin Summit, and I talked about how we're going to need to develop new crypto auditing standards and things of this nature. And so I'm really impressed with what Michael's doing at C4. We actually interviewed him for the podcast. These new standards, these certification programs that he's coming up with, I think that's going to be very important for our industry as it grows and matures and professionalizes. Because, if we really want to be worthy of bringing in billions and tens of billions and hundreds of billions of dollars into this ecosystem, then we need to be able to provide the security solutions that are worthy of that. Because the current system, they've proven they're not worthy of that. Home Depot getting hacked, JP Morgan getting hacked, they proved they're not worthy to hold the private keys. They're getting hacked all over the place, and they're externalizing the costs in the forms of identity theft and fraud and increased fees and all that stuff. Sure. We really need to step up and offer something that everybody can really benefit from.
Yes, absolutely. And I think, Bitcoin is interesting in that it gives you complete control over your money, but with control comes responsibility. So that also means you have full responsibility over your money. If you want to delegate that responsibility, then we've moved away from the whole decentralized, you control your own money paradigm back to more of like a central bank situation, which I think, in some contexts might be, the most practical solution. But I think that it kind of goes against, ultimately what we're after with this. We really want to give people full control over their own money.
And we also have to deal with, there are a lot of different use cases out there. What about the HOA that might want to hold its funds in Bitcoin or in some type of digitized currency like Tether, for example? I mean, that's just in its infancy, but we don't know who's going to be using it for what purposes. It doesn't necessarily have to be just the individual holding their private keys. If we want to have institutions come in a big way, we're going to have all the policies and procedures in place to properly segregate the duties and make sure everything's following standards and make sure that the standards are going to work to secure the funds.
Yes, absolutely. And I think what's happened lately is, I think people kind of get lazy when things seem to be working and there hasn't been any hack. People just kind of say, oh, this is secure enough. And then, they get hit sooner or later. My hope is that we don't have to see too many more of these incidents before people really start to take this seriously.
Yeah, that's what we've thought for a long time. BitPay, Armory, Kraken, we haven't had security incidents at any of them. We were kind of joking, Jesse Powell and I, because we were together when having breakfast when Bitstamp announced their hack, and I'm like, well, maybe we'll handle their receivership too. If you don't take the security seriously, you're going to get weeded out.
Yeah,
that's just what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Bitcoinica, Mt. Gox, mybitcoin.com. We could just go on and on and on. My friend Kevin, who runs Coin Reporting, it does all the tax reporting for your stuff. He integrates from all the different exchanges. He actually has a list of all the exchanges that have failed, because he supports the integrations for them all, and it's a long list. Yeah. So if you don't take security seriously, you're just not going to be around for a while. That's just the way it is. You're going to lose your funds. You have to respect the private keys.
Well, I'm not going to disagree with that.
Yeah. Is there anything else that you'd kind of extol for the audience? What are you kind of most worried about in the Bitcoin space? You're down there in the code, right? You worried about anything, or is it just humming along?
Well, one of the things that's kind of bothered me a little bit is the fact that it's really hard to extend Bitcoin. It's really hard to add any fundamentally new features without hard forking it. I'm hoping that the Sidechains project or other initiatives in this space are able to find some solutions to this. If I were to say what concerns me the most, I'd say it's that.
Yeah, I'm actually a big proponent. I really like Adam Back and this sidechains proposal, particularly now that they've solved the two-way peg. I think that can help us come up with a development process for Bitcoin where
Absolutely.
we're able to experiment off in these side chains, screw stuff up, bring back what works. I think that's very important to have a development process for Bitcoin. What are you most kind of optimistic about? It's never been in more commotion, but it's yet in forward motion. The whole industry seems to be. We've got a lot of volatility in the price, but work's getting done. What are you most optimistic about in all of this? You've been around it so long.
I'll start by saying that I'm not too concerned about the price. I'm not in this to speculate. I'm in it to build, a core technology that I think is revolutionary and is going to enable people to be able to do things that they were never able to do before. The price, obviously it's nice when the price goes up. There's more interest in this. It's people are happy or whatever. But I don't think that that's a long-term concern. I think that that's something that in the long term, this technology, or some manifestation of it will definitely be huge, and it's already starting to become huge. And I think it's going to be something that's going to transform a lot of the ways that we do a lot of things, and a lot of applications that we haven't even thought of yet.
Yeah, we got so many potential applications that are going to come about because of this. So we've had Eric Lombrozo. He's founder and CEO of Ciphrex and creator of the mSIGNA wallet. And, Coke is a better company because of Pepsi. If all of our security competitors to Armory were like mSIGNA, I think we would be in much better shape in the Bitcoin community. And just for the listeners, personally, I think it's good to have keys being created or stored on multiple different systems. With Armory's lockboxes, for example, when you create a multi-signature lockbox, you can pull in public keys from different wallets. And so if you're using mSIGNA and Armory, and another wallet, you can actually make it even more difficult for your security profile to be potentially compromised because of that. So I think it's great that we have competitors like Ciphrex in the community with products like mSIGNA. So thanks so much for taking the time with us, Eric, and keep up the good work.
Thank you, Trace.
Be sure to get a copy of the free Bitcoin Guide at freebitcoinguide.com. Got a question or suggestion? Record your voice at bitcoin.kn. Don't be shy. To help the show, share bitcoin.kn with friends, post about it on Reddit, and otherwise spam the interwebs. Your iTunes comments and 5-star reviews are very important to us. Please continue tuning in to the Bitcoin Knowledge Podcast, where we release interviews with the top people in the Bitcoin world. Now take some choline and let that Bitcoin knowledge consolidate.